Hello, my name is Janalee Lyons, and I'll be talking to you today about culture influences that affect children's growth, development, and behaviors. So, first of all, let's talk about what is culture. Culture is the customary belief, arts, and food, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. Culture is the main reason how people raise their kids, in turn, how children develop and who they are. Major culture and societal influence on child development are socioeconomic status, or the SES, race, gender roles, ethnicity, religion, parental practice, language, nutrition, and beliefs of education. So let's start off by talking what is the socioeconomic status, or the SES. The status of a family's economic and social position is relation to others based on their household income, education, and social status. The quality of life for children and youth greatly are affected by SES. If a child lives in a low SES, they're going to be affected more than a child that has a high SES. Low SES parents are usually uninvolved parenting style. They do not provide the educational activities or the interest in their kids and their education. They do not engage in conversations with their children and talk to them. This hurts the child cognitive, language, social, emotional, and physical development because the parents are not interacting with their kids and giving them that conversation that they need as they develop. Low SES influence on child development will cause a higher infant mortality rate, higher levels of obesity. You're going to see higher levels of malnutrition with low SES families, higher levels of emotional and behavioral difficulties, higher rates of depression, anxiety, tends to suicide, and you'll see kids start smoking cigarettes at young ages, using drugs, and start heavy drinking as teenagers when they come from low SES. So these all affect the way these children are developing. High levels of aggression are seen in low SES, higher incidence of Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease later in life from children that come from low SES families, and a poor academic performances are being found in low SES families as well. Low SES affects the education as well. Children of low SES families often begin kindergarten with significant less knowledge because, once again, parents aren't working with their kids and helping them develop and learn these skills when they're supposed to. Low SES students that enter high school then are usually 5 years behind those that come from a high SES because they started off school behind. Low SES students are more likely to miss school, which even puts them further behind. And then students on low SES are 5 times likely to fail to graduate compared to middle income families because they just eventually give up without that parental support. So the next category that influence child development is the child's race. Race is generally considered to be the individual's physical and biological characteristics. So you got the color of skin, hair, eyes, body structure, all contributes to what race is. But basically it's harder to separate race trends from socioeconomic disadvantages, because poor black children are more disadvantaged than white. It's been shown that race has a great effect on the SES status and how children are developing. Gender roles is another area that affects a child's development. It's different societies have different means of how girls and boys should act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct themselves. Parents just treat boys and girls differently on how they raise them, and that's going to help make them develop differently. Boys, most countries think boys are masculine, and so they should play with trucks and get dirty and should be strong and bold and should be the leaders of the families and to show no weakness, where girls are supposed to be feminine, wear dresses, play with dolls, nurturing, be mothers, and usually this is the way they'll raise their children, and they develop thinking this is how they're supposed to be. Gender roles around the world can be very different. U.S. children are given usually more freedom to be themselves. Women can take on bigger roles, and they try to teach their girls now that they can be anything they want to be, and same with boys, that it's okay for a boy to play with a doll. But in Brazil, girls still have limited rights compared to men. Children, they're pushed more traditional roles. Girls should be moms and boys should be head of the family. And then the Middle East women even have less rights and teach their girls to serve the men. And the girls have more stricter rules than boys as far as like the education they're allowed to have and how they're supposed to dress and cover themselves, versus where the boys have more rights, and they teach them this at a very young age. The gender of a child has a big part of how a parent raises their child on and how they develop. So ethnicity is another factor that goes into how a child develops. Ethnicity helps children know who they are and where they come from, and it gives them a sense of belonging. Parents and immediate family are the strong influence on children's ethnic identities. They learn who they are by through their parents, and once the kids start school, then their peers have the greatest influence on the children's attitudes and behaviors. So you see this change throughout the years. A negative side when teaching children about ethnicity is you teach them there's a division between groups that can cause prejudice and discrimination and conflicts. So there can be some parents who teach their kids about their ethnic group and that maybe they're superior to others. And so this will give the children a sense of they're better than people. So it's good that parents should allow their children to learn about other ethnic groups and be well diverse in other cultures, so that they learn not to be discriminating and learn to accept people of all ethnicities. Religion is another big factor in child development and how parents raise their children. It's been shown that children who grow up in a religious family are better behaved. Parents have social networks when they're in a religious group that provides more support that can help improve their parenting skills and kind of gives them those people to rely on and turn to when they need help. So then, in turn, parents are not going to be as stressed out and give the child probably more of what they need. Religion values and norms teach children to be self-sacrificing, pro-family, love your enemies, and kindness is a lot of what the religious, especially Christian and all that, teach kids. And that is, and kids develop more, a better behavior. If parents regularly argue over faith, they can give children a negative effect about religion instead of that positive. There's several parenting styles that goes into how a child develops and different in each culture. There's 4 types of parenting styles: authoritative parenting, which is high levels of control and low levels of responsiveness. They just control the child and they don't let them have any say on what to do. And there's indulgent passive parenting, which is very low levels of control and high levels of responsiveness. They let their children make a lot of the decisions on what they want to do. And then there's authoritative parenting, which is a high level of both control and responsiveness. Parents try to give their child decisions, but at the same time helping them make the right ones by controlling those decisions. And then there's also the 4th one, which is the neglectful parent, who has a lack of both, who doesn't ever control or who never gives them any responsiveness, and they just totally neglect the child altogether. Ethic and culture differences affect parenting styles. Like, for example, we see authoritative parent linked to like Asian ethnic families. They really push academic success, so they'll really control their children and how they do that. We see less positive social outcomes when we have an authoritative type of parent, but where Asian families think that is a good thing. So kind of the difference between the different cultures. Parenting styles allow children flexibility and freedom, may result in positive outcomes when they live in a safe area and have peers that do not encourage them to do bad things. So that type of parenting style would be good. But if a parent has that kind of style in an area maybe where there's a big city and gangs, then the children are higher risk of getting into trouble, and they'll need stricter rules to follow. Language has another big factor on child development. Mothers from all different cultures has been talking to their babies in different ways for many, many years. And of course the language that the child hears is what language they're trying to learn and develop. Mothers from Germany focus on needs and wishes them and picks them up as a person, where the African tribe groups have focused more on social context with their babies when they talk to them. European American children, they have a long, elaborate, self-focused narratives emphasizing personal purpose and autonomy when they're talked to. And then once again, you see the Korea and Chinese mothers usually so great concern with authority when they talk to their babies. But it shows you the different ways and cultures that mothers talk to their young as they develop. The language that a child hears when they're a baby is their primary language. Some children, there are 2 languages that they'll hear, so they're bilingual, but usually this causes a child to develop more slowly in their language skills because it gets confusing with the two different languages that they're hearing. How a child is talked to in their language shows a lot of love and like feels that development that they need, where if they're talked to very harshly, will hinder their development in a way of not getting that love and nurturing that they need from their parents. Nutrition is another really big factor in how a child develops physically, and it can affect emotionally as well. This influence even starts when the baby is in the womb, and then it really important is the first year of life. Nutrition is the fundamental for good health and development. If children are not getting the right amount of protein and fat, carbohydrates, and micronutrients, they will start to develop illnesses. And then this can lead to things like delayed mental or motor development affects them, and this will affect them beyond childhood. It leads to obesity, and even some children die in countries that are very set in poverty. The damage that young children receive from nutritional deficiencies are unreversible, especially if it goes on past the age of 2. Children need that balanced nutrition for normal brain development. So there's a big thing that children in the U.S. deal with, and that's called food insecurity. We don't see a lot of poverty or starving kids in the U.S. It's more called food insecurity, and this is when families don't have a lot of money, and to avoid hunger, they'll choose a cheaper, more filling types of food, like boxed and processed food like mac and cheese and cans of soup and ravioli, those type of things that don't cost very much but are filling but has very little nutrition to them. This type of diet provides inadequate nutrition for normal growth and development, because when food is that processed, they lose a lot of those important nutrition that a growing child needs. Families that are food insecure usually are unable to afford balanced meals, they might reduce the size of meals because they didn't have enough money to make a lot of food, or they'll reduce the quality and variety of a normal diet due to the lack of money as well. So 90% that eat this way will have poor health. 30% were more likely to spend time in the hospital as kids because of the lack of nutrition that they have, and 76 were more likely to have problems in cognitive language and behavior development because of the lack of nutrition, and they did not develop properly. And there's also another issue with nutrition when they're not getting what they need is called the hunger obesity paradox. And this is basically comes again with children in food insecure homes are actually more likely than other children to be overweight, once again because they're getting those high calorie foods that barely have any nutrition into them that are leading them to be obese. Food insecurity in children's first year associated with obesity at age 4 causes metabolic changes in how energy is used and stored, so that's why children become so obese at such a young age. And of course, this type of eating affects brain development and teaches kids these irregular eating patterns that will set them up to be obese their whole lives. And then being obese can cause many health problems, heart issues, diabetes, all kinds of issues that a child's body is starting to develop at such a young age. One of the biggest deficiencies that we see in children around the whole world actually is iron deficiency. It's the most common disorder, and it's found in 1 in 5 babies. And of course, once again, it's more common in the low SES communities. Iron is essential nutrition for a child's development, and it's very important children get this. Symptoms of an iron deficiency child would be slow weight gain, pale skin, no appetite, irritability, and cranky and fussy. The next thing that helps child development is beliefs of education. Some parents, some countries like put great importance on a child's education, where other countries or people don't feel like education is that important to a child's growth and development. When parents put their child's education on a high importance, they will help enhance physical and social, emotional, cognitive development. You'll see these hiring kids that parents put education first. They'll learn at a young age to focus. They learn if they're being taught at a young age, they should spark their interest and curiosities, and it should be fun for the children at a young age so that they'll be interested in it. This helps the kids have better success in school, and they do better in their writing and reading and arithmetic when parents start their children early and teaching them so child development, once again, it can look at many different ways in many different countries, and each parent and culture have their different beliefs on how they should raise their children and what. So a lot of people who live in a community will have their parents and grandparents that help influence the parents on how they should raise their children and bring them up to be adults. And then the most important fact that affects the development is the SES status and what kind of life they're living, and also the nutrition is one of the most important factors on how a child develops it, if they're getting the right nutrition and getting what they need. So I want to thank you for listening to my presentation on child development and how culture and affects the way children grow. I hope you learned something new, and once again, thank you and good night.